Our reaction to the Netflix documentary, Mr. McMahon. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's go back. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Gen X Unfiltered.
What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Hi Eric, hi Steve.
Hello, Kelly. Eric, good to see you
Kelly,
guys again.
Steven, welcome.
We're so formal, I love it. I feel like every episode we just get more and more formal.
Yes.
I'm going to wear a tux next time.
Ooh, we should. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it took a lot of work just to put a sweatshirt and jeans
Yeah,
on.
this was too much for me, so tux isn't happening.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was this close to showing up in my sweatpants, but I was like, oh, I better put some effort into it.
Sweatpants season is almost here, just saying.
That's
is.
right. It's getting closer.
It is. I mean, if we weren't on video, I would. But,
That's
you know.
true, yeah. The video, it's we need to get a table higher so we can cover up
Yeah.
our midsection or
Yeah.
something.
All right, like the title has suggested or indicated, we are discussing the Netflix documentary all about Vince McMahon called Mr. McMahon. McMahon.
McMahon.
Not
McMahon.
McMahon.
He's not a muckman.
McMahon. Yeah, it was what, 6-7 episodes? I have it here.
6 episodes, I think it was? Yeah.
Episodes.
Yeah.
First of all, we'll just ask the question, or I'll ask the question just so everybody kind of knows our knowledge level going in.
All right.
Eric,
Yeah.
you are familiar with Vince McMahon.
I know I am familiar with Vince McMahon, yes.
Were you a wrestling fan, or are you still?
I'm going to say growing up I was a wrestling fan, and then in the Attitude Era, I was, late teen years there. I was a fan again, and then I kind of fell off after that, to be honest.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, pretty much the same as Eric. Yeah, I loved it as a kid. And then I kind of fell off a bit. And then, I got back into it like during the Attitude Era and like college and stuff like that. And then I tried watching it a few times since, but no, not really my jam anymore.
I watched wrestling because it used to be on Sundays, right? Sunday afternoons or
Saturday
something?
mornings, I
Or
think.
Working on
Saturdays?
Saturdays.
I can't
Like
remember.
Like we were kids, it was like, I think it was Saturday mornings.
But I used to watch the, like, back in the, like, Roddy, I would just say, Roddy Piper had a dirty
Rowdy
diaper.
Roddy.
Is it Rowdy?
Rowdy, yeah.
I always thought it was Roddy.
No, Rowdy.
Oh.
They'll say Roddy twice. It's not Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper?
Rowdy.
Because he's rowdy.
Oh.
He's ready to get
That's right.
to scrap it.
And
Scrap
then
up.
the guy who used to swallow his tongue all the time.
Swallow his tongue.
No, I think you're thinking of the one time where he got like
okay, whatever.
Are
all
you
the
thinking
time.
of Georgina Steele with the blue tongue?
No,
No.
I think of Ricky the Dragon
Yeah,
Steamboat
it's the
when he
Stranger
got hit in the throat
Things.
with the
Look,
bell.
I remember that. That's why I always say always swallowed his tongue. Anyway, that guy and like that era, I watched a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of.
like the 80s.
Yeah.
And in the chip bags, you get the little stickers, and I used to stick them all in the back of my door. My mom was so.
Oh, I had a
mad.
ton of those. I used to
Oh,
have
yeah.
I had them all in my lunch pail.
Yeah, and then I did dabble in it, I guess, around that.
Sounds like drugs.
Dabble.
I dabbled in wrestling later on.
I watched it a little with the oh my gosh, what's the ball guy's name?
Stone Cold,
Stone
Steve Austin. Yeah,
Cold
I
and,
mean
like,
that was
The
it was
Rock
hard
and
to
all that.
avoid it. Then like wrestling
Yeah.
was huge at that point. Like it was massive.
But that's about the extent of my knowledge about wrestling. I did watch the Hulk Hogan reality show.
No, that's right. I forgot.
Oh,
It
Hogan
was,
knows best.
The Hulk Hogan reality. I love that show. I thought it was really. I mean,
It was
it's
interesting to
stupid.
see how because you obviously you see
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan in the ring and in movies and stuff like that. And to see him like at home with as a fit father and a husband and stuff like that. It was a different light
Yeah.
to see him in for sure.
Definitely a different look.
Not quite as good as like the biggest one was the Osbournes.
Yeah.
Seeing
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne, I was like, wow, this is not what I would expect at
Oh, yeah.
all.
That man's a
No.
walking disaster.
And it's just the way his kids would treat him and swearing and all this.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It was yeah.
You guys were like 4 minutes in, and we've already got off
Yeah,
topic.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to reel y'all in?
Do it.
I think
Okay,
you
let's
did.
reel us in. So, the Mr. McMahon provides a detailed look at his life, career, and controversies across 6 episodes. So, episode 1 is childhood and early career. That episode covers McMahon's challenging childhood, his early days working for his father and the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. It highlights his ambitious purchase of the company from his father, setting the stage for his future successes in transforming professional wrestling. I didn't know any of that when I watched it.
I had heard some of that, maybe not all of it, but I kind of knew sort of, I don't know whether it was in another documentary I've seen or something, but I kind of had an idea of like how Vince McMahon came to be who he was. But it was interesting though. They really dug into that whole like backstory.
I think that it explains a lot about who he is as a person now.
Yeah.
As far as like, we'll talk about that in later episodes, but I just mean like there was always competition between him and his dad. And then when
Yeah.
he was sort of making smarter decisions than his dad didn't really like that so much.
Yeah, no, I think his old man thought he knew best,
Yeah.
and that was part of the problem. I think where Vince McMahon had a bigger, I think Vince is
Well, he was younger, and he.
Yeah.
well, because just to kind of touch on it quickly, like back in like the 70s, it was very regional. All these like every sort of like state or county had their own kind of little wrestling thing going on, and they all kind of stayed in their own lane. Whereas I think that's kind of Vince McMahon Senior, the dad, kind of liked it
Yeah.
like that. Whereas Vince McMahon was like, this is kind of crazy, and thought, I'm going to bring all these under one umbrella and make it one big thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he went to nationalize all the regional
Yeah,
wrestling.
whereas I think the dad was kind of like, it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of older and set in his ways.
Yeah, whereas I think Vince McMahon Jr., Mr. McMahon, had bigger ambitions to make this bigger and better and make more money.
But
and,
it's also fascinating because, like, later on in the show, which I'm sure we'll talk about again, but the same patterns repeating with him and his son.
yeah. Well, it's a family. When you work with family and stuff like that, it's
And
always
egos and all that
well,
stuff.
the thing
One-
too. It's
One thing about Vince McMahon from that documentary, he has an ego. He'll give him that. I mean, you have to be.
Oh yeah, obviously
yeah.
he's a massive ego for sure.
Yeah.
you don't get to be as big as you. The big thing, you kind of it's hard to tell what's real and what's not, even when he's being interviewed and stuff like that. Like,
Well, because
it's,
he's still technically like a bit, right?
Well,
like,
that it's really, and that was sort of the whole thing. I mean, I've watched some of the Ric Flair 30 for 30 or whatever it was, and like a lot of these guys, and sort of you can't tell where does Vince McMahon start and where does Mr. McMahon, the character, start, and
Yeah, and that's really the key question of this whole documentary. Really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, who is Vince McMahon and who is Mr. McMahon?
Well, and that's-
where is there a separation? And who's who?
yeah, exactly. And
I'm gonna-
you hear that with a lot of wrestlers. That same like Hulk Hogan.
Well,
Yeah.
when you're doing it 365 days a year, like that's your bit, right?
Yeah.
It's like actors who act in a movie. For that 3 months they're filming, they are that person. That's it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Exactly. I remember reading an article about because I really like Sons of Anarchy, and one of the guys who played I'm gonna forget his name now. Ryan Hurst, Opie.
Yeah.
And yeah, after he left the show, like he had a really hard time, like because he'd been doing it for years, and like all of a sudden it's just like it's over.
Yeah.
And
Now
it's
you're not
hard
open,
to
yeah.
that again. It's where do I start and where does the character end? And
Yeah. Was he like a character actor?
no,
No,
he was
he
one of
was
the
the
main
main
stars. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I was thinking more like Jim Carrey when he did like Man on the Moon. Like he demanded to be called Andy Kaufman.
Oh,
the
you
whole
hear a lot
time.
about like Daniel
Yeah.
Day-Lewis. I think is big like
Yeah.
that. You hear a lot of like it can be hard to work with him almost because it's like
Well,
Yeah,
because they
you know.
have to immerse themselves in that character. You hear that about a lot of actors who do like, like the most recent one was the Menendez brothers monster.
Yeah.
The guy who played Eric Mosley is the one that I saw being interviewed, but like he's like literally like I had to be him, like because
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to portray real people,
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to like become them.
well, and that's I mean it's weird because you hear some actors be like, no, it's
Yeah.
it's acting like you just
Yeah.
you just turn it on or off.
Yeah.
But then there's other actors or actresses that like they like I'm gonna immerse myself in this role and like
It just depends on your
live that
Yeah.
life and be this person and like live like that. But like you said, like just call me by my character and that's it. Some people it's
Whatever
sort of
works,
weird.
I
But some
guess.
actors are like, no, just tell me when to go and I'll
Yeah,
do
exactly.
it. Like I know how to act.
But it really stuck with me, like when they interviewed the different wrestlers and they asked like, "Who is Vince McMahon?"
Yeah.
And a lot of them were like, honestly, like I don't know. Like even
Or-
the Hulk, like people have worked with Vince McMahon for like decades, like Hulk Hogan and
Yeah.
and these guys, they're like, I don't really know who Vince McMahon is, to be
I think
honest.
that's
Well, that's the thing too. They're like,
I think
Yeah.
that's really telling, though, as we were watching the documentary. Like, that was later in the documentary, I
That
think,
was,
when
like,
they
the
asked
end of
that.
it, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it was like, it was just very telling because, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but throughout the whole, like, because it's him. So we should point out, though, really quickly, is that this documentary was filmed before all these, like, allegations and stuff came out, the most recent ones.
Yeah.
They do put a little disclaimer. So that's why he's, Vince McMahon is narrating basically this whole entire show
Yeah.
or documentary.
Yeah.
And then the last episode is sort of when, and then he's not being interviewed.
Yeah,
He
then
like disappeared.
Yeah,
He stopped participating. Yeah.
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 But he was because it was whether he came up with the idea, but he was fully on
Yeah,
board.
it was about
for-
him.
Yeah,
And I think that it was really telling because I don't know. It was watching it. It was one of those things I couldn't tell if I liked him or not. I do have to say one thing. I just have to say it, but like Vince, I don't know how old is he in his 70s?
He's late 70s now.
Was
I
it like
believe.
75, 76 or
Vince.
something like that?
Let's just age gracefully. You're a very handsome man, but not when you do too much Botox.
He definitely,
Yeah, he got some weird work done to his face.
I don't
And
know.
that little pencil mustache he has now is not a good look.
I just
No, I
don't
know,
know
it's
what's happening. Like, he was very handsome, and whatever, he's still
well,
handsome.
like
But I'm just
most
saying,
people try to say,
from the nose up, there's just no movement.
yeah.
And,
Yeah,
and his
yeah.
lips, he's had weird lip things, and they're like, I don't know.
It's
Anyway,
like most people, some people age gracefully by trying to fight it, and
Well, I get
tooth
it.
and
Yeah.
nail, and it. I don't know. You see that with a lot of celebrities. Once you start messing with the face, it's
Yeah.
you got to be very careful. There's
Whatever.
a fine line between like a little touch up to like, ooh, you
I
kind of
mean,
went too far.
I'm not one to judge, do you? But I'm just saying, like, a lot of these people, I'm just like, you
Yeah.
just look so much natural. Like, just
Oh, you look older
yourself,
when
yeah.
you try and fight it too much. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
you said, all walks of life. Like
Oh, yeah.
even just people around streets. Sometimes you see
or
them,
like
it's
20-year-olds that are getting Botox. Girl,
That's insane.
Yeah.
No, you don't even have wrinkles yet. Relax. It's fine. It's cool.
20-year-olds getting Botox. That's crazy.
Oh my
That-
god, it's all the time. Like, okay,
Really?
so I'm gonna go
That's
on
nuts.
a little offshoot here because
Yeah,
what we do.
we're off the rails. Go
That's
on.
okay. I'll come back really fast. But I'm watching this. I'm sure people out there listening. I don't know. Anyway, it's this like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I've been watching. It's a reality show about these Mormon influencers and they're a hot mess. Anyway,
Seems Mormon influencer.
But I was-
influencer sounds like an oxymoron.
I was
Yeah.
watching them, and a lot of them are like 22, 23, 24. And before they put their ages up on, I was like, damn, you look like you're 34. It's because they're getting all this Botox and stuff so young that it's taking away the like
Yeah.
youngness look of their
The
face.
natural glow.
I'm like, stop. Wait, they have plenty of time to
yeah,
do that.
yeah. No, people
Have
just
the baby face, or not baby face, but you know
No,
what I
but
mean, like
yeah.
The youthful.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like, how do you look almost, like,
yeah. You try
Anyway.
again. You try and fight it too much, it just is the exact opposite effect.
but
Yeah.
like 20, that's insane.
No, 20 years old having like that. Yeah, that
Again,
seems crazy.
do you? But you're beautiful without it. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
all right,
back.
that's it.
If you take nothing else away from this podcast today, you're
That's
beautiful
right.
just the way you are.
That's right. No one needs
Exactly.
Botox.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I mean, Botox isn't bad. I'm just saying you don't need to. And whatever. Anyway, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the early years. It was kind of what I was expecting. His growing up. Like
Yeah.
it was like, okay, yeah, that's what I would expect. I
Yeah, I
wasn't-
mean, your dad owns a wrestling business and stuff like. You grow up around it, and your dad's on the road all the time, and
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he was dirt poor and didn't want to be dirt poor anymore. So he
Yeah.
did, he latched onto his dad's wrestling career and just took that to the next level.
yeah.
Yeah.
You actually try. He wrestled for a bit too. Like he was actually a wrestler, and I think you have to be in that world. You got to know
How it works.
Yeah.
in the ring and outside of the ring because it's.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. You just you can never really tell. It's like, is this like
Yeah.
not that there was anything outrageous, but it's just
No.
like, is he telling the truth or is this just a
Oh,
work?
yeah.
What do they call it? A work?
One of my favorite parts of the first episode before we move on was when they show Vince how he first got into one of the first jobs his dad gave him was as an announcer. And
Yeah.
they show clips of him kind of like doing his announcing bit.
Yeah.
And it went back to the guy that played Brother Love, but he was like, "This is a terrible."
He was terrible.
He was a
Yeah.
terrible announcer.
Yeah.
he didn't even like mince words. He's like, "No, Vince was terrible at announcing."
He
And then they go
was
back to a
awful.
clip of Vince like,
Yeah, and it's just like brutal.
brutal, like just fumbling his words and.
Well, because remember they said like some guy, I can't remember if he quit or fired or whatever, and Vince's dad's like, you do it.
Yeah, the regional announcer who was supposed to do the job,
Yeah.
he was trying to hold up Vince Senior for money.
That was it. And
before
so,
the show
yeah,
started.
So Vince like, fine, Junior, you do it.
Yeah.
No experience, nothing. Just go. You're
Yeah.
and he was terrible.
Yeah,
rightfully so. He definitely, yeah. I mean,
yeah, but he cut his teeth and learned the ropes.
Well,
Yeah.
not exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
look where he ended up.
And I don't even think he cared he was terrible.
No,
No, I think he kind
Right?
of,
And there's
probably knew it.
Well, there's a fine line between like, like I said, he's like an ego. He has a big ego. But I think there's a fine line. Like in certain, like you have to, like it's like brain surgeons. You have to have an ego to be a brain surgeon.
Well-
you have to think you're the shit. And I want you to think you're
Well,
the
you
shit.
Yeah.
have to, because I mean, there's a million reasons why you wouldn't do this, or
No,
why
of
you would
course.
try it or give up or quit or whatever. No, you need to have that ego drive
yeah.
to keep you going, because it's like it's crazy what you're going to try and do, and
Yeah.
you have to believe yourself, and because if not, you're just going to give up.
All right, episode 2 was Hulkamania and WrestleMania.
Oh.
So the second episode dived into McMahon's creation of the global phenomenon WrestleMania and his relationship with Hulk Hogan. WrestleMania 3 is showcased as the peak of the 1980s wrestling boom, but the episode also discusses the decline of both Hogan and the company during the early 1990s. So
Well,
this was the Hulk Hogan era?
Well, that was
Yeah.
the thing. That was and the sort of they touch on that at the end of the first episode, where as now Vince McMahon has bought a bunch of these different regional wrestling groups and made the WWF, but he knew you needed a superstar to you needed that
That
big
character
name
to drive
draw
the
everyone
business.
in. Yeah, and that's where
Hulk Hogan
Hulk
came in.
Hogan came in. Yeah.
Interesting. Before Hulk Hogan, he tried Dusty Rhodes as being the main guy, but Dusty couldn't cut it.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
a few times he learned in different, different eras to this, where they kind of thought, hey, maybe this might be the guy to
Yeah.
lead the company, and it was like,
Well,
didn't do it. Yeah,
Did they say? I mean, I watched it, but there was a lot of information going on.
Yeah.
But did they say like why Hulk Hogan was such a hit with everybody? Was
Well,
it just because he was like the All-American?
Well, I think just his personality. That was it. Like he could talk, he could do the, he could deliver the yelling and screaming and calling people out and all that stuff. And he was huge and big, and
he had a big of a personality, a bit of a presence already from the Rocky movie he did.
Well, that's
so that's kind of what happened. So Vince Sr. brought Hulk Hogan in the early '80s initially.
Yeah.
And then Hulk was like, I want to go do this Rocky movie. Sylvester Stallone's offered me a part in Rocky 3. And Vince Sr.'s like, don't do that movie, you're a wrestler.
Yeah.
And Hulk Hogan's like, forget it, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
And so he went and did that movie, obviously a big hit. And then, he kind of built his Hulk Hogan name and brand in another wrestling like league after that.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan knew he was a personality himself, right? He was like, I'm going to invest in Hulk Hogan and make what's good for me, not what's going to help WWF or whoever else.
And then Vince Jr. seeing, kind of watching Hulk Hogan from afar, sees opportunity. If I bring this guy over, he's got that name recognition.
He's got that Riz.
The Riz.
That's the word I'm looking for. He's got that Riz, exactly. So he's like, he brought him back, and then he worked a storyline where basically Hulk Hogan was the American hero.
Yeah.
He took down the Iranian bad guy who was the Iron Sheik and became the All-American hero and champion of WWE.
Now, the one thing I do have to say, you just said that and it reminded me, and I mean, clearly it's obvious. I mean, they did talk about this really quickly at some point in the episode, but like some of the storylines they had back then, damn, they would not fly today.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they did say that. Like, obviously, it was a different time. That was, quote-unquote, okay. Like, it wasn't as, unacceptable as it is now. But, like, watching it back, I'm like, oof.
Oh, yeah. Well, it Vince said they kind of follow what was in the news, right? So, like, you had the Iranian hostage crisis and all that stuff. So that's where you had the Iron Sheik and all that stuff coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it worked immensely,
Yeah.
People could relate to it and stuff. And
exactly. That story had built-in tension to it, so you just throw a couple characters into that mix.
Yeah.
And you've got wrestling magic.
Yeah.
I can't really remember. I mean, I think that episode was all like pretty much Hulk Hogan heavy, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was really just about like the WrestleManias, because that was sort of like, like Vince's, that was basically the Super Bowl of wrestling. That's what he envisioned it being.
Yeah.
So it was really just talking about that and how, whether they could do it or was going to bankrupt the company and all that stuff too, right? Because they weren't sure, like, if anyone going to watch it. They did like closed circuit television for the very first one.
Yeah.
Was that the one where they said that, because his kids and wife were also interviewed in this, so they were interjecting sporadically, but is that where they said that they like would lose everything if it didn't work?
That was, I think, WrestleMania 3, I think, was the one. That was the big one, because they had it at the...
Pontiac Silverdome.
Yeah, where they had 93,000 people.
Yeah, they were literally like, if this didn't work.
Yeah, the amount of money they were spent, the company was like, we'll be
bankrupt.
Belly up, because they had like, like some of the different WrestleManias, they had like Liberace at one of them. And
that was the very first WrestleMania.
Yeah, they had sort of celebrity guests. Yeah. They had Aretha Franklin singing the anthem.
They had
God Bless America.
Muhammad Ali was a guest referee.
Yeah, so Vince obviously realized, hey, we we need some of the, well, even like WrestleMania, he had Mr. T as one of the guests, not a wrestler, but like a guest. What was he
like a coach or something?
Mr. T was a wrestler in WrestleMania 1 and 2.
Oh, did he actually wrestle?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was a tag team with Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 1.
Oh, okay.
And then so he tagged up against Rowdy Piper. You got me. I said Rowdy Piper, and I think Mr. Wonderful.
Was that Paul Orndorff?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's WrestleMania 2. Mr. T came back again in a pseudo boxing match against Roddy Piper. And the boxing match ended in a DQ when Roddy body slammed Mr. T. Illegal to body slam in a boxing match.
Yeah, you can't do that in boxing, apparently.
In case you didn't know this,
This is before the days of UFC, or even UFC, you don't really...
Yeah.
You can slam people around, but not quite the...
So this was also they did make comments throughout the thing, but this was when wrestling was super popular with kids. There was lots of kids.
Kids were the main market.
Yeah,
they were the main market.
Definitely. That's the toys and stuff like that. It was all geared, even Hulk Hogan, right? Taking vitamins, say your prayers, like...
That was another big change that Vince had, right? Because before Vince kind of nationalized wrestling, it was very much like, a bunch of the kind of lowbrow guys who are just drinking beer, looking to watch a bunch of guys fight in a ring, right?
Yeah,
very
yeah.
low brow, they said, right? And then after Vince took over, it switched, and you saw a lot of families and kids showing up.
Yeah, I realized, hey, there's a
and with family and
big
kids
market
come
here.
a big market for
All the
merchandise
and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Episode 3. Scandals of the early 90s.
Ooh.
This episode focuses on some of the darker periods in McMahon's career, including the steroid trial and the Ring Boy scandal. It features interviews with reporters who covered these stories and archival footage related to the allegations of misconduct within the company. Ooh, I remember this episode.
Yeah, I definitely remember hearing about the steroid stuff, but I don't think I ever heard about the whole Ring Boy.
What is that?
No.
That was
new for me.
The one referee was basically a pedophile.
Oh, ooh, I
and
missed
was
that.
bringing kids to the ring to work as like helpers and stuff like that. And it was like, yeah,
And these kids were getting abused.
yeah. I don't remember hearing about that.
No.
Well, I mean, anyway.
But yeah, so they ended up, they got
Good.
Those guys are all gone now and stuff.
Good.
But yeah, it was.
But
There's a bunch of them, and a couple of them. There's like 3 or 4 of them. It seemed like they were kind of.
Yeah.
More importantly, though, this was the episode where the episode where they had Hulk Hogan like beating up the reporters or something.
No.
I don't
They
know.
were talking about the steroids of the fake wrestling.
That might have been.
That might have been the previous episode,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, okay,
That
sorry.
was hilarious. Yeah, they showed a
confusing.
couple of times where and I get that was sort of their thing. They're like they had John Stossel was there doing a
Behind the
not really a
scenes.
documentary, but they thought he was there to help sort of
Promote it.
wrestling, where his whole thing was to go in there and prove that it was fake,
Mm-hmm.
and they did not like that at all because they're like, hey, this is
Yeah.
our livelihood. You're going to screw it up for all of us.
Well, because obviously with an audience that's mainly kids are going to believe it's real. So they
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
that narrative to change.
No,
right?
exactly. It's like, and that's sort of what they always say. The outcome's scripted, but how you get there is real. Like,
Yeah.
throwing people around the rings and
Well, yeah, I mean-
smashing
Yeah.
each other with chairs. Like, that's all real,
Obviously,
but
yes.
the outcome is predetermined.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember that John Stossel asked one of the guys about if it was fake, and he hauled off and smacked the shit out of him.
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Hulk Hogan that did that.
No,
No.
I didn't remember the guy's name. He was like not a really big wrestler, I don't think.
No.
But
Well,
he smacked
no.
the crap out
Yeah,
of him.
yeah.
What did
John
he?
Stossel ran
Oh,
away.
yeah, he ran.
And
He
he
had permanent hearing
sued him
damage.
for hearing
Yeah.
damage. Like, you're such an idiot.
Okay, don't even get me started on this
But-
because I still think it's an asshole move that he slapped him like that. Just don't just whatever.
Well, hey, I say he thinks it's fake. Now he knows it's not. Right?
That's not a really
you go.
appropriate response, though. To slap somebody,
Hey,
so stupid.
But hey, that's how they do it in the ring. They hit each other in the ring like
Yeah.
that. You hear those slaps; they're not fake.
No.
they don't
That's
actually
fine,
punch
but
each other in
they're
the head.
like-
But
I get it. We're gonna agree to disagree on this. I still think.
I just think it's hilarious because the guy was a little weasel trying to
Yeah.
basically ruin the party for everyone, and then he got again.
well, he's a reporter. It's his
yeah,
job.
well, again, what's the?
He's trying to pull away the curtain and show
Yeah.
everyone the truth behind the magic.
That's right.
I
and they
love that
found-
shit.
It's the fuck around and find out, and he
Yeah.
found out that
But
those
that's-
slaps aren't fake.
That's actually crazy because there was two big incidents that almost spoiled the first WrestleMania, right?
Yeah.
I think you're mixing the two up because Hulk Hogan was on a talk show with Mr.
That-
T.
Talk show, yeah.
Yeah. with,
where that the host
oh god, Richard Belzer.
was
is
basically
really
like,
random.
I think wrestling is fake and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Put me in a wrestling hold. Hulk Hogan obliges and says, fine, here we go. Puts him in a front chokehold. Belzer passes out.
Puts him to sleep.
Puts him to sleep. Hulk Hogan lets him go, and he just drops to the ground, smacks his head off the stage.
Yeah, that's bullshit
Yeah.
too. Like, why are you? Okay, yes. So what they're doing to each other in the ring is real. They're really slapping. They're really doing this.
Yeah.
But they are also trained athletes who kind of know to why are you looking at me weird?
I was just on the camera for the red light blade to be cool.
Oh, to see if the camera is still rolling.
Well, I know it's the time.
Oh, okay.
Anyways.
Anyway, but really quickly.
I'm looking for John Stossel. Is he
No,
here?
but I'm just saying. So they obviously, yes, the moves they're doing are real, but they also are athletes who can know how to maneuver them a little. You can't do that to somebody like full throttle and then not expect that outcome. And he sued him, and I'm glad he did because he gashed his head open.
Yeah, they both
Yeah.
they both should WWE. And
Although that was, I don't think the problem was Hulk Hogan let him fall. That was the problem. Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan should have not.
No,
he,
but
he should have been like, this guy's out. I'm gonna make sure he doesn't smash his
Yeah,
head.
he should have known.
no, he
that
just dropped him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly.
That was
so
bullshit.
Yeah.
That was dumb on Hulk Hogan's
Vince
part.
wasn't
Yeah.
happy with that.
No, he
No.
was really, because it's like, dude,
Yeah.
like we're getting ready to go do like the big. This was, I think, the first WrestleMania, wasn't it?
Exactly,
So
that's
this is
what I mean, like,
this
this
is
is-
the biggest event we've ever done.
Yeah, we've mortgaged our houses for
Yeah,
this.
and you almost screwed it up by getting
Yeah.
us sued by the powerhouse Richard Belzer. It's such a random thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, he had a talk show.
Yeah.
apparently.
yeah.
So, anyways, in episode 3, this is where really some of the sheen comes off of Vince McMahon's golden glow, right? Where the 80s was all win for the most part.
Yeah.
And now he's got 2 big scandals in front of him, right? The Ring Boy and the steroid scandal.
Yeah. He starts to realize not all that glitters is gold.
Yeah, I mean,
His stairway to heaven is falling
the,
to pieces.
The steroids, like, hashtag shocker.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, come
like-
on. I mean, look at the guys. Like,
look at the size of these guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's,
And because, I mean, their whole brand and their whole personality is being big and muscly and strong. So, like, come on. Let's, whatever. I'm not going to say everybody was doing it, but probably a lot of them were.
yeah, I think they said most of them were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
trying not to, accuse anybody.
well,
who
most of
didn't
them
do
said
it.
they were. It wasn't
Yeah.
like it wasn't really a hidden secret by any means between these
I know.
guys.
No.
Just didn't want to do a blanket statement saying every single person
Yeah,
was doing
it's
steroids.
actually pretty crazy. Their doctor, who was assigned to them to make sure that everything was on the level for like the state health regulations, he was the one who was selling the steroids.
Yeah, what's also funny, he was there, like, wasn't he, like, the WWE didn't put him in there.
No,
it
that's
was
what I'm
like
saying.
he had to be there because of the
He was
wrestling or the fighting commission or whatever it was.
Exactly.
So it's like,
He was
yeah.
assigned by
then-
the state.
He
Yeah.
got charged, so that was the end of that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was because the trial was going on too, so that was
Yeah.
the whole like.
Vince first showed us kind of like, I don't know. I think it's a pussy move showing up with like a neck brace on to the court. The
Yeah,
court case.
yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like, looks like a ploy for sympathy no matter what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because these are wrestlers, right? Everything, what do they call it? Work? It's
Yeah.
a job. It's like, this
Yeah.
is not, on the level at all.
It's a work. Exactly.
Yeah.
There we go. It's kayfabe.
I am gonna say quickly that again, I had really no opinion of Vince McMahon before I watched this. I mean, I knew of him, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I definitely, as I went through, it's one of those hard things because, like we discussed earlier, like you have to kind of have an ego to do what he did or does.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, like I just think he was kind of an asshole.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, totally.
To, you be the top dog like that, I think you have to be. I mean, you're trying to run a massive business
Yeah.
with a whole bunch, and you're dealing with like the entertainment side of things with a bunch of personalities that way and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of, again, I don't know if I'm premature in the episodes. All the episodes run together.
Yeah,
So
I know
honestly,
it's
don't
kind of hard to tell. Remember
But-
which one was which. Totally, yeah.
Then there was the whole, like, I get it was whatever, but like, massive exploitation of the women wrestlers.
Yeah.
Like massive exploitation of it. I mean, even they talked about it. They're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
I mean, Vince has got like many problems. Like after watching this documentary, my opinion
Yeah.
of him has definitely gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, I kind of always
Yeah.
thought he was whatever,
But
yeah.
the how many times you turned a blind eye to all of the sexual harassment
Oh my
and
God.
abuse and assault that was going on in his organization is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
like he was on
yeah.
the Donahue show, and there was that guy who was on Donahue there, and he basically accused Vince and Pat Patterson of sexually harassing. Well, he accused Pat Patterson of sexually harassing him.
Yeah.
And because he refused to sleep with Pat Patterson, he got fired.
Yeah.
And Vince's
Yeah.
argument was, no, you got fired because you were terrible at your job. And he's like, the timing makes that
No.
total BS.
Yeah,
No.
no,
Yeah.
I know. There was a lot of.
it was horrific. Like I can
Yeah.
only imagine the working conditions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that
Like-
was sort of what everyone said too. They're like, who are you going to complain to? Because you had
Yeah.
to go to Vince in the end.
Yeah.
and he
Exactly.
was friends with all these guys that were
Yeah.
causing most of the problems. That
And
Or-
Pat Patterson was super talented and he was the booker, they called him.
yeah, he
So-
would find the talent and help
Make the
with
matches.
and the storyline.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He's really good at it, so he's super valuable. And Vince, I think one of the key things about Vince you learn in this documentary is he doesn't see any color but green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll push everything aside to make sure to protect the business.
All he
Yeah.
cares about is making money. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horribly toxic workplace. I can only
Yeah.
imagine.
Oh yeah. Well, that was one of the whole things that came out in one of the episodes was that Jesse Ventura was trying to get a union for the wrestlers.
Yeah.
And Hulk Hogan ratted him out to
Freaking Hulk Hogan.
Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Look, Hulk Hogan was okay. I gotta be careful what I say here because this is.
This
like,
is all allegedly. Even the whole Pat Patterson, Eric said, this is all allegedly.
Whatever. It's in
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah,
It's-
no, I'm just saying it's all allegedly. though.
Yeah.
We're not accusing anybody of anything. Everybody's
No,
innocent
exactly.
until proven
It's-
guilty.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Now I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I have to
Hulk.
say this eloquently because whatever. But Hulk Hogan, whatever. He just seems like a big. What am I gonna say? Kiss ass.
Kiss ass, self-serving
pussy.
D-bag.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
a loser. I'm sorry. Okay. Hulk Hogan, whatever. maybe the character, I don't know, but yeah, just that whole thing with
Yeah.
like
He's-
sucking up to
He
Vince.
definitely comes off as self-serving.
Yeah.
Because put yourself in Hulk Hogan's shoes, and a union. Why would you want a union if you're the top guy, right?
Well,
No,
I get
exactly.
it.
He's the top dog, so he's like, this is not going to help me.
it's not going to help me at all as Hulk Hogan right now,
So
right?
I'm gonna squash
so
it
I don't
by,
care, and it's going to even put me better in my boss's books
Right.
if I tell him what's going on.
It's like that squeaky wheel. Everybody,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
work. Everybody has one
Yeah.
person they work with. Like,
But if he had a real care about like his coworkers
No.
and the
And-
future of the business,
and making it better for
everybody,
Yeah.
he shouldn't have said a thing.
No, it could have, who knows what could have changed, in terms of giving these guys more health care and rights and,
but it didn't matter
Yeah.
because he was probably obviously making the most money.
Well, no, exactly.
He had the most merchandise about him. I mean, he was super popular as kids. I imagine Hulk
Oh,
Hogan
Hulk
was one
Hogan
of your
was-
favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well-
not my favorite, but he was, he was
Popular.
huge. Like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
many
Yeah.
movies was he in and stuff like that?
When I was a kid, Hulk Hogan was definitely one of my favorite guys. I had a Hulk Hogan puzzle when I was a kid.
Nerd.
you know, and I loved it.
I was
It's
always
like,
more of a macho man.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I like macho
But
man.
I don't know, like just what, like it just grates my nerves because he just seems like he's like I'm this big tough man, but he's just such
but
an
he's-
ass kisser.
Well, because he had
Ugh.
Vince behind him and stuff too,
Gross.
right?
Yeah.
And even that was one of the things Jesse said, that Jesse Ventura was like, I knew it was him, but
Of course.
Yeah.
he would never admit it. And then
Well, no.
finally, 30 years later, he's like, yeah, I told him. It's like,
yeah.
Which is even worse. Like you're such a little.
yeah,
I can't
it's
say
just
the word I want to
It's just a
say.
real dick move. And,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's basically but what's good for me, not good
Of
for
course.
everyone, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like Eric briefly said, the amount of stuff that was just either not said because it wouldn't matter, or
Yeah.
was said and they got fired or penalized for horribly toxic workplace.
Oh God, yeah.
Especially an industry that's all. Again, I'm not saying specifically anybody, but I'm just saying a male-dominated industry,
Yeah,
and then you have
yeah.
some women in there who are out there to showcase their body
Yeah,
and
yeah.
their looks and their, wear as skimpy as they can and to just be, ugh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Gross.
No, I mean, it was, especially back then in the early '80s and stuff like that, where times were a lot different to begin with and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So even general workplaces, there was not nearly the
No,
HR presence and stuff
no.
that there is nowadays. So, but then you take
Yeah.
this like crazy circus kind of act, whatever you want to call it, on the road for like 300 days a year, where
Yeah.
these guys are living together, they're wrestling together, they're partying together, they're fighting, they're fucking, they're doing God knows whatever
Well,
else.
but
Like
just-
It's this pressure cooker ready to go
it's
off at
just
any
a
point.
recipe for
But then
Yeah.
shitty
even.
behavior and just bad stuff.
But then
Yeah.
I'm just talking about even like the storylines that were made for like the women when they
Oh,
first
yeah,
came
yeah.
in. Like, oh my God. Anyway, whatever. It's fine. It's not fine, but it's
No,
better
and
now.
even they say that now too. Like at least a lot of them were like, "Yeah, no, what we did then, yeah, that would never fly today. We would never
No.
do it again." At the time,
Yeah.
it was.
But I
like,
guess-
it's like watching an '80s comedy movie.
Well,
now.
you
You can't
learn
really
from
watch
it.
if you watch it through today's lens. It's like Jesus,
Yeah.
how does it ever get made? It's
Yeah.
like but good or bad back then, it was different.
No, but
Vince had
learn.
a phrase he described women's wrestling when it first was kind of like there in the 80s. I think he called it like the D Class A of the D Class A or something like that.
Ugh.
Something like that.
Basically like the lowest tier of wrestling there was.
Well,
Basically,
wait,
Yeah.
wasn't there something in there where because there was a few the female wrestlers, like what was her name? I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She was being interviewed now.
Trish Stratus.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, she was in there.
Yeah, but they were like basically they wanted to go in there to be wrestlers to show their athleticism and do that, be
Yeah.
like we're wrestlers.
Yeah.
But it was more just stand on stage and prance
Well,
around in as little
especially
clothes
like,
as you
it was
can.
even worse. The '90s it was probably the worst for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even in the '80s, they were wrestling. It
Yeah.
wasn't whatever. They were treated terribly outside of the ring, but in the
Yeah.
ring, it was like they were wrestling. It wasn't
Yeah.
that. But you watch like the '90s,
Oh, it was
where,
like bra and panties.
well, it
and,
was much
Yeah.
more like TNA type. It was like
Yeah.
it was definitely more that.
It
that was what it was all about.
It was geared towards like the 18 to 34 male fantasy. Like
yeah, well,
here-
that's what they
here's
sort
some-
of
here's
sort of said too, right? Like
Yeah.
the '80s was all about the family and the kids and stuff like that, and then once that started to wear off, because we didn't really touch on that much
well,
yet.
hold on,
But
we're getting there.
okay, sorry.
You guys always jump ahead. So episode 4 is the Attitude Era. This episode captures the rise of the Attitude Era, where McMahon's on-screen villain persona alongside stars like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock helped I'll say WWE, but it was WWF.
It was, yeah.
Win the Monday Night Wars against rival WCW. However, it also touches on the tragic death of Owen Hart in 1999. So there's a lot going on in this episode because it talks about the Attitude Era, it talks about how people left to go to the WCW.
Well, and that's what I was about to talk about before you cut me off. No, but I'm just saying is you did, but that's what I was talking about was we didn't really touch on the WCW part of it where...
Right, because this was the next episode.
Yeah, because at the end of that episode, the WWF was starting to falter, right? It wasn't, Hulk Hogan and these guys, a lot of these guys had now gone to WCW, which is their main competitor, which is owned by Ted Turner, a billionaire who was sinking money into them like crazy to try and knock WWF off its pedestal.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of that. So WWE is going through this like weird transition where the whole eating vitamins, say your prayers was not cool anymore.
They basically needed to find a new Hulk Hogan.
That's, exactly.
And nothing was working, and then...
They tried Lex Luger, the Lex Express. That bus failed.
And then...
I was surprised to hear that, actually, that they thought he was the guy that was going to be the guy to do it.
So then they had Stone Cold Steve Austin. And when he first was there, he wasn't like... Bam, right off, like, okay, it was quick, but I'm just saying it wasn't like, I guess I should say, it seemed like based on what Vince McMahon said is that they weren't really expecting him to be the one that was going to like blow up.
Yeah.
No.
But he did, like, as soon as he was out there and he was like campy and like cheesy.
It's
and
because,
like,
remember Vince McMahon, they said he had like a meeting with all the wrestlers in the ring and it was like, we need attitude.
Yeah.
That's what this is missing, attitude.
Yeah.
And so that's when and Stone Cold remembered that when he was doing one of his wrestling, and after he made a couple of comments on the mic about, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
Yeah.
And the Austin 316 thing, and all of a sudden those things, he just kind of said them on a whim, and they took off.
This all ties together because remember how Stone Cold got that opportunity at SummerSlam to win?
Yeah.
He wasn't supposed to win. It was Triple H who was supposed to win.
Yeah.
But Triple H got punished because of the curtain call. And what that was is like
that's right.
A couple of the WWF superstars. It was Diesel and Razor Ramon were going off to WCW.
Yeah.
And at this like a house show where it wasn't televised,
they celebrated they gave him a little send off for leaving the company.
Yeah, those two, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, they all did a little like celebration for leaving the company on their last match.
Yeah.
Which is like breaking kayfabe.
Yeah, I was surprised how many wrestlers were pissed about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do that behind the screen, but don't do it in the ring because now it's like the good guys and the bad guys are actually friends, and you're sort of ruining, you're breaking that fourth wall and letting people see what really goes on.
So losing two guys to WCW and that whole incident where Triple H got punished because of the celebration they had there, that gave an opportunity to Stone Cold, who ended up winning SummerSlam instead of Triple H, to have his big moment on the mic where he dropped the Austin 316 line because Stone Cold said so. That, boom, that took off.
Yeah, it just resonated with people.
And he was always beating the shit out of Vince because he hated him, right? He hated his boss. That was the story
that sort of came a little later. At first, Stone Cold was just doing this thing, his beer drinking, whatever, son of a bitch, blah, blah, blah.
I liked him. He was funny.
Oh, yeah, he was hilarious. But then that's and that was sort of the thing, too. I kind of didn't, the timing of it all, but because on the WCW side, you had Eric Bischoff, who was the president of WCW, becoming a character on the show there, and that was kind of becoming a thing.
Yeah.
But then, so I think Vince saw that and was like, oh, I'll... because then after all of a sudden Mr. McMahon started making more appearances and becoming a character.
Oh, I hated that character. I just wanted to punch him in the face.
Well, and that's the whole point.
He was really good at that.
He was good at that.
Because, look, he was really good at it because part of it is actually him. Well, I don't care what you say.
He would, in that thing, Vince McMahon said that it was, he would just sort of take those aspects of his character and personify them.
Yeah.
But then, like, guys like Hulk Hogan and stuff, like, no, that was Vince.
Oh, yeah.
There was no difference between Vince in the ring and Vince outside of the ring.
I called him Brother Love before, but his name is Bruce Pritchard. I just remembered it. So...
Okay.
He played Brother Love. It's the same guy.
Yeah.
But he was one of the guys they kept going to for like interviews and asking like opinions about Vince and stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that he's like Vince McMahon is Mr. McMahon.
Well, that's the thing. Vince McMahon will tell you no. They're two totally different people. But most of the other guys are like
it's like an exaggeration of him. It's not like a one to one. But there's exaggerated parts of him are Mr. McMahon.
I don't even know if it's an exaggerated part. I think it's the parts that he suppresses because he has to be the boss, and then he has the opportunity to just like let it out.
Do it all. Yeah.
Yeah. like he's probably living out some of his fantasies in
Of
these
course.
storylines.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Okay, but I'm jumping way ahead, but I don't want to forget this because they were talking about like storylines and like, you know, like throughout the era, like the years, they were talking about, you know, different storylines and how they came about and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
one of the storylines, because they were talking about, because Stephanie McMahon was, this
His
is
daughter,
when they
yeah.
all kind of showed up
In
more
the
so.
night, and that's when you had it's
Yeah.
Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon.
But she-
what's his wife's name again?
Linda or something.
Linda McMahon.
yeah.
That's right.
But
They
she-
all kind of came in. Yeah.
Yeah, and she, they were talking, somebody asked them questions of like, oh, what are some storylines that like never made it or whatever, and a lot of them are like, oh, you know, we can't say that, or
Most
I'm
of
not
them
going to say
are like, we're not going
that.
to say it because it's.
But
yeah.
then, like, Vince McMahon, like, this right here just speaks so much to
well-
who I think he actually really is, and
Yeah.
just doesn't give a shit unless it's going to bring him money.
That's yeah.
He said that he wanted to do a storyline where he got Stephanie, who played his daughter in the Stephanie character,
Yeah.
pregnant.
Accidentally got
Yeah.
knocked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you effing kidding me?
Well,
Like,
even
how
the-
many levels is
Yeah,
that wrong?
his daughter was like, no, this is not happening.
Accident. No. Whatever the hell this story. How. Yeah.
But wait,
no.
but my whole point is like that just proves right there how much he doesn't give a crap
Yeah.
about anything other than what's going to make him money.
No. Oh no.
No,
Totally.
no.
He's just like I think this storyline would sell.
Insane.
You know, would just.
And it would have, but
Whatever
wrong.
brings in the green. That's,
well, look.
that's
There was
it.
a whole storyline with his wife was like drugged and
Yeah.
like. You
Yeah,
know,
she was,
He
whatever.
was having
she was
an
like, you know,
affair.
like,
He was
like
having an
comatose in a wheelchair.
Yeah, well, he was like basically dating Trish Stratus and stuff like that. Like his
Yeah.
the storylines were insane. Yeah, I mean
But
the
if
whole
you
Attitude Era was
notice-
just over the top.
Oh,
like-
yeah.
Well, but then if you notice too, I mean, obviously I get it, but like, you know, when he started filtering in a bit more as Mr. McMahon, but then it was like he was the major part of every skit, we'll call it, or
Oh, yeah,
storyline.
yeah.
Like he had such a freaking ego. Like he just wanted to be the star because
Yeah.
he started wrestling a little bit in there. Like he was doing some.
Oh
moves
yeah,
with
yeah. Oh, he
people.
came. He was all jacked up. He was just,
Oh,
you know, he's
he's
just as
juiced
big
up.
as the
Oh
wrestlers.
my
yeah.
god! I'm like, from somebody who went to like, you know, whatever, to like literally looking like he had like a muscle like fake bot like.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
I know. He come
yeah.
out doing his little Vince McMahon strut. Yeah, like he was totally jacked for like
Yeah.
a 55-year-old man and stuff
I'm
like that
like,
too. Like
this
you know,
is-
All natural, I'm sure.
He was
Yeah.
living out all of his fantasies during that era.
oh, he had the
Oh,
best of
yeah.
both worlds. He was running the company, making millions of dollars, and then he could also go in the ring and like yell and scream and fire people and
And
wrestle
that's-
and whatever.
And that's
yeah.
when the whole like, you know, so it was a storyline initially where where Stephanie was, you know, gonna marry Triple H, or
Yeah.
she was drugged and they got married through a drug, whatever.
Yeah.
Stupid story. But then they ended up, because they had a lot of stories together or acting together, that they ended up actually like getting married in real life.
That's right.
And they're still together.
They're still married. Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple of kids and
I
whatever.
mean,
yeah.
Triple H he's like, all right, cool. I'm
That's,
in the McMahon
that's-
family now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's taboo and the big risk, I guess, marrying the boss's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
never know how that's gonna go, but
But so that whole era where he was in all the skits and all that, that's when I was gonna say something and I can't remember now. Why do I always do this?
I don't know.
I was gonna ask if there's anything else about that, because I wanted to talk about the last thing they mentioned, but I feel like that needs to be a separate, not a separate thing, but like once you finish talking about the Stone Cold and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I was definitely all in on. I watched that all
Yeah.
the time. Like I was
Yeah.
watching Raw and stuff like that. Like I went
that
to a
was-
couple of the house shows back in the day, like
Yeah.
in the early 2000s, and seeing all this stuff. And they were huge. And The Rock too. Like The Rock, you forget how big he was.
Oh yeah, and that was the big thing. Like the Attitude Era, it really keyed into the 18 to 35-year-old
Yeah,
male.
That's
yeah.
and Stone Cold versus Mr. McMahon. That's like every guy's fantasy.
Well,
is
who
just
doesn't want to?
kick their boss's butt once in a while,
Yeah,
right?
who doesn't want to give him a stunner, give him a kick
Yeah.
in the nuts, and you
And
know,
that
yeah.
was when the shift changed to where it wasn't kids and families their target audience, like you said. It was
No,
the-
and they did.
Yeah.
I mean, they watched that with there, and I get it because I remember back in the day, like, but they took a lot of flack for that too, because it was like,
Oh yeah,
they're still making all the kids' toys and stuff like that, but it's not
for
kids'
kids.
storylines at all. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
So they took a lot of heat for that, and rightfully so. Like it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like, what are you doing here? Like
You're
a
saying this is for
family kind of
adults,
family
but
product, but you're
still marketing towards
you're
kids.
Still got the kids market, but
So
it's
this-
not kids friendly.
This also, the last thing that they mentioned here, which I don't have to go into a ton of detail of it because I'm sure everybody's heard of it, but when Owen Hart died in 1999 at a live event.
Yeah.
So, really quick synopsis. It's an event. It's a live event. He had done the like fall, coming from the ceiling thing before, and he was going to do it again. and they were on the announcers. They were in a pre-recorded bit on TV.
So all the lights
And-
were off in the stadium.
Yeah, so all the lights were off in the stadium and malfunctioned. He ended up just falling. Well, it wasn't the lights were out. So the audience luckily didn't see him fall. You can hear you can't hear, but like the audio, whatever. So they realize something happens. They go on stage, they pull him. Okay. I'm getting all like flustered because it just boggles my mind that this happened.
Yeah, so basically he dies in the ring.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay, I didn't know what you were doing. So
Sorry, I was just trying to like collect my thoughts.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
I'm
super
So
just
he
explaining
dies.
to people,
He dies in front of all these people, but these people didn't see him fall. These people don't know that he's dead on the ring, but he's dead. He fell. He's there's blood on the ring. I think a lot of people might have thought it was part of the thing. Whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah.
So they don't tell the audience because the audience doesn't know. So the show continues on. They're like, we got to keep the show going. Blah 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 blah. The announcers on TV, like after this has happened, not long after this happened, literally announces to everybody watching on TV that he's died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His family hasn't even been told.
I
What
don't-
if his
As far
family's
as
watching?
we know,
As
yeah.
far- yeah, who
Okay,
knows?
but I mean, like it was like quick.
But the fact that they carried on the show is insane. Like they show these
That's
wrestlers
insane.
trying to do their stand-ups like they would
Yeah.
normally do, and they're like literally.
They're in
with
tears.
Jeff Jarrett with I can't remember who the lady was with.
Deborah.
But she's literally just bawling, and he's
Yeah.
Oh my
trying to keep it together. He's
Yeah.
like, this one, because I don't
And
know if he
then-
really knew, but he makes it basically says, we're doing this for Owen Hart and hope he's okay or whatever.
Yeah, because they don't know he's dead at this point.
Yeah, so then he's trying to,
Yeah.
so it's just a complete mess.
then-
And like you said, there's blood stains in the
Yeah.
ring. It's just like, what are you doing?
But after it is announced by Jerry Lawler and them that Owen Hart has passed. All the wrestlers know at this point, right?
Yeah.
The event
Yeah.
still goes on, and these guys have to go in the ring with Owen Hart's blood is in the
Yeah.
ring.
Oh, I know.
And have their matches. Like,
His body is probably still in the building because it hasn't been taken away by the ambulance
potentially,
yet.
but
Yeah.
it's just such a messed up,
And
like,
so Vince McMahon's whole thing was, well, the audience never saw it happen and didn't know he died, so we just kept it going.
yeah, it's like, cool, but what about all the wrestlers who they're like family with this guy
Oh
and
my
stuff? Like, just,
God.
but it's all about the dollars with him. That was,
And,
Yeah.
and he had a chance too
Oh, I was just gonna say that.
to say, you know what, I made a mistake, or he's like, no, I stand by it.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
I was gonna say, and the even more tragic part of this is, I know you're gonna correct me, Steve, because I'm gonna be wrong with the facts. I know, but I'm just saying, correct. The whole thing is like his brother was in the other league and he wanted him to go,
WCW.
but he didn't
Yeah.
go. He's like,
Bret
no,
Hart.
I'm loyal to
Yeah,
Vince McMahon. So he stayed and died, and Vince McMahon gave 0 Fs and kept the show going. Ooh, that makes me mad.
oh yeah,
So
no, yeah,
angry.
Bret Hart. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Montreal screw job and stuff, but yeah, Bret Hart had left to go to WCW at this point and
Yeah.
wanted his brother Owen to go with him, but Owen was like, no, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stay here, and
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack in this documentary because
there's so much. You just
the
realize
Montreal
how much
Screwjob
stuff.
really launched the Vince McMahon character.
Yeah, well, that's
Right?
sort of what it was too. He kind of spun off of that and took
Yeah.
it to his advantage. Yeah,
And it's hard, like you said, to unpack. Like this was like 7 hours worth of a show, and
Yeah.
like trying
Yeah.
to keep it all straight of the timeline in our head. So that's why we get kind of like backtracky sometimes.
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's
No,
just-
it's we have a breakdown, of just a high sort of synopsis of
Yeah.
each episode, so we just make sure we, have that right. But yeah, it was really really well done. I will say that.
Yeah.
Like if you're even like a mild wrestling fan, I would say definitely
Well, I
check
mean,
it
I
out.
was a mild wrestling fan, and
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. I mean, if you don't like wrestling at all, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
still enjoy it. I don't know, because there's tons of footage, and there's a lot of interviews with like tons of wrestlers and stuff. So
Okay,
it
but
was,
it's not over yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It just sounded like you were wrapping up. I was like, no, we still have 2 episodes. But if I didn't already think Vince McMahon was a big asshole, I definitely thought
That
and
definitely,
especially
yeah.
when they were like, would you have done it over again? He's like, no.
That's the thing. Not
Yeah.
even the hesitation of.
I get in the
He's like, no,
moment.
totally.
Yeah.
totally.
In the moment, I would be like, okay, you know what? You're shocked. You don't know what to do. Like, let's just keep it going. I get that. But then years later to be like, no.
Well, because it was a pay-per-view event too, I think, right?
We didn't want to lose the money.
He's thinking that,
Damn.
like, how do we cancel this? But yeah, the fact that there was not even a hesitation of like, you know what, maybe now I should have whatever. But no, he's like, no, I was gonna do it again the same
Yeah.
way.
No humility.
Yeah.
My one observation during that, though, was I was like, you know what? Good thing social media wasn't around then, or smartphones, because everybody in that auditorium would have known he had died.
Oh yeah.
Because they would have
God,
seen
yeah.
it. People would have been texting them. People
Yeah.
because they announced it on
Well,
TV.
And the one saving grace for the family is there's no footage out there.
That's
of
what I've
him
heard is that there's
falling.
no one
Yeah.
other than people who were in the ring.
Yeah.
Or happened to,
because it was dark.
but
Yeah.
nobody has seen that. There's
So-
no footage of that.
Exactly. So
incident.
it's not something that replays on social media every day, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, long story short, they sued the manufacturer of the harness, and anyway, the harness was unfortunately defective.
Well, 'cause,
That's
yeah,
what
well,
ultimately happened.
Yeah. Because the Hart sued WWF, won money, and,
And
then
then they
WWF
sued
sued the maker of the vest he was wearing, and then it turned out it was faulty. Yeah.
So it was just one of those horrific accidents. But I do
Just
wonder, because it was the 90s and like the whole like, workplace safety. I don't know what the standards were in the States, but like
Yeah.
here in Ontario, like very high standards for workplace safety.
Yeah.
But like, I just wonder like if it was today, would there have been more I don't know. I know it was
probably.
a faulty harness.
God, of course it
but,
would
like,
be. I mean, it's it's
I feel like
20
there's-
years ago, so yeah, definitely there'd be different rules now. I think, yeah.
It's just,
Mm-hmm.
ugh.
Well, it's dangerous stuff. I mean, you see
Well, of
like
course.
like you see these like mascots and stuff do it all the time. It's like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
All right, episode 5, business expansion and competition. It covers McMahon's business moves, including WWF going public and the failed XFL Football League. It also explores the buyout of WCW in 2001, leading to the WWE's dominance in the wrestling world, while also dealing with the company's struggles during the early 2000s, such as losing stars like The Rock. I think there's one thing we should point out, because I think it happened somewhere in the previous episode or like in this era. But there was so we mentioned Stephanie had a big storyline. Shane McMahon, his son, did have a storyline, but I feel like it wasn't as huge as Stephanie's. I mean, maybe it was, I don't remember.
Well,
to
he
be
was
honest.
a bit different. He kind of became more of a
A wrestler.
wrestler. Like,
Yeah.
So, but the thing is like, this is where I was talking about at the beginning, where it's like, he was interviewed during this documentary, and he was saying like, he was trying to be more on the business side of it and give his dad ideas, and his dad was kind of like, boy, go home, like, like he wanted to work with his son, but it's like, this is my business, like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And because they were talking about the WCW and how was that where what was it? UFC, yeah, that's later, but anyway, but so there was sort of starting to be a little bit of like, I feel like, just based on what they're saying, like tension between them, kind of like,
Well, I think like anything, Shane's like probably like Vince was, but when he was working for his dad, at
well,
some point you're
exactly.
like, hey, I've got different ideas.
Well,
I see different ways to do this, and
because we remember Stephanie, before she was even a storyline, she was working in the business like all these years, and she was also a part of the creative making these storylines too now at this point. So I feel like Stephanie was kind of like the golden child of them both.
Well, they sort of all said that they think he would,
He treated it with
was-
different standards.
He was,
Yeah.
he was definitely harder on Shane, which you
Yeah.
probably saw more of himself in Shane, 'cause,
Probably.
But yeah, but that was one thing. At least Vince, he was like, no, both his kids had to work their way up.
Yeah.
Like they started out like in the writers' room and doing like whatever, but they weren't like just given the keys of the kingdom. It was like you got to learn the business to.
But definitely, I feel like Stephanie had more of, because even the storylines they made, like, okay, I don't remember all of them, but just what they showed in that documentary, even the storylines of the family storylines, it was like, Shane was kind of always on the outs with like Stephanie or like whatever, like he was just like kind of the black sheep almost. It was this weird little like thing.
I agree, definitely that angle.
Again, I don't know every story. I didn't watch it
yeah.
religiously, but just from the documentary based, sort of like how he was talking.
Well, he stepped away for like 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
And I mean, he fiercely loved his dad. He respected him. It wasn't like he has hatred for him per se, but like definitely, I feel like there was.
It's hard working with your parents and family. It's tough, and you want to do your own thing too and prove you're not just Vince McMahon's son. You're your own man, right? So yeah, you go and do your own thing.
So I feel like after the Attitude Era, it was like anything, right? That was probably the highest of the highs. You can never really replicate that.
Yeah, so we're kind of going to another downturn here, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like the 80s, big huge high, late 80s and early 90s was a big downfall there.
Yeah.
And now after the Attitude Era, I think this Attitude Era ended around 2002 or so.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
And we start going into a down cycle again.
Because after you lose, like you said,
The
Stone
Rock.
Cold retires, The Rock gets into like acting and stuff like that. So then it's like, okay, who's our next?
We need someone to step up.
Who's our next golden boy?
I do have to say, because I forgot to mention this, but like the one wrestler, I would think I was telling you guys during the documentary that used to freak me out when he'd come on stage was The Undertaker. Ooh, he
Undertaker,
was
yeah.
scary. He was
Yeah.
interviewed in this documentary a lot, and it's weird because I picture him like being all creepy.
No,
and
it's funny to
Undertaker.
see him because I think he's got like a podcast. Mostly like
Yeah.
Stone Cold's got a podcast. I think
Yeah.
Undertaker's got a podcast.
Well, they probably have some great stories.
Oh,
I can imagine.
yeah, and the stuff they wanted
Yeah.
to talk about. Yeah, and being on the road like that, all these. Yeah.
But yeah, that music, that dong.
Yeah, you always hear that gong,
Gives me
it's like-
chills.
It's
Gives me
crazy how much he
Here he comes,
changed too.
the
From
dead
being,
man.
like, from being like the dead man, where he's like super creepy to like he was always the dead, but not
When
the
he became
same,
the
like,
American Badass, that was sort of like, what?
That was a weird,
This is weird.
kind of like misstep where he's like
Yeah.
coming on Harleys and stuff like that.
With,
It's like,
to the Kid Rock music,
Yeah,
it's
it's like-
this is not Undertaker.
yeah, that was during the whole attitude. It's like, oh, he can't be Undertaker anymore. We gotta,
Yeah, we're gonna make him a badass
yeah,
now.
that was a weird
Yeah.
sort of trial run there that didn't last too long. Thankfully.
No,
No, but he was a wrestler for a while, wasn't he?
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
it's
1990.
Yeah, he's been
yeah.
Yeah.
He had like I think he had like the record for the most wins in WrestleMania or something.
He had
or
the
other.
streak, they called it.
Yeah, it was like 30 in a row or something
Yeah.
like that. Or, yeah, and then
Till-
he lost, gave it up to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar.
But this is where like they mostly were talking about like the business side of it, I think, and well, they were talking a lot about the like.
Well, because this is the big thing. Like they took WWE public, right? So now it's a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
So then now you got stockholders,
Yeah.
and that changes a lot for Vince too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Also, you got stockholders and share prices and stuff. You got to worry about. That's a whole other ball of wax.
Which is another reason why the Attitude Era had to shift back more towards family friendly after that.
Yeah.
Because now you're interested to shareholders
They're
and investors.
not so cool with Braun and Pena matches and Vince McMahon getting hit in the head with bedpans
Exactly.
and stuff
Suddenly
like that. It's
you have
like,
a different standard and a different image to uphold.
yeah,
Or impregnating his daughter.
Or that.
that never happened.
I
So it's,
cannot. But okay, this is another thing. The fact that all the other people were like, no, we're not. I'm guessing they were alluding to that when Stephanie was
Oh,
like,
yeah,
there's
no,
stuff
they
we're
were
not going
like,
to
yeah,
talk
we're
about.
not going to bring that
And
up.
he
Yeah.
just,
He
I
kind
wanted
of laughed
to-
about it. He's like, I think there was one about that. Yeah, it's like-
impregnating, stuff. I'm like, it just shows the
No,
ego.
it's just like, I don't know how-
right?
yeah.
It just shows the ego or narcissism just doesn't care. It's like,
Well,
this is what it
just
was.
like-
Yeah.
Because even like Stephanie and the others were like, oh, I'm not going to talk about
Yeah.
those. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, clearly it's wrong.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Ugh.
And so this is also now going back, sorry, to like this is where he tried to branch over to, like he mentioned, like the XFL, his
Yeah.
football league that lasted like a season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of thought, again, I think some ego and, again, hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thinking that somehow wrestling and football would
So
somehow become this massive,
this is history repeating too, right? Because in the early '90s, there was WWE had a bit of a downturn. Vince tries to branch out into that, like, he had that bodybuilding league.
Yes.
yeah,
that
that's
failed.
right, that WWB
WWBF?
or something, or yeah.
And that failed. And so again, he tries to branch out in the early 2000s with XFL. And WWE's got a bit of a downturn.
Yeah, he's thinking,
and that failed. So
but clearly,
exactly.
he's
So
like, he
Vince
knows
not learning from the past.
He knows wrestling, but
Yeah, football, different story.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
That's,
right.
that's what they said. Like, he had like the WWE promotion for the football going, but the football itself was actually terrible.
Well, that's what they said. The problem
Yeah.
was
The product
The
on the
product was an
field.
awful game. Yeah.
All right, so then the last episode. This is where it kind of like they have a whole bunch of text on the screen, basically being like, "This happened." Like, there's
Yeah.
been multiple like lawsuits that he's had against him and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Lots
so
of lawsuits over the course of that documentary.
the
They're talking
final episode discusses McMahon's most recent challenges, including his 2022 resignation amid sexual misconduct allegations and the eventual merger of WWE with the UFC under TKO Group Holdings. It also reflects on McMahon's complex legacy, blending both his creative impact on wrestling and the scandals that have tarnished his reputation. So 2022, he resigns because there's a sexual misconduct allegation against him. Stephanie takes his spot.
Yeah.
She's like, steps in, she takes his spot. So, her and Triple H are living the high life. I'm just kidding. But, like,
No, but they take over.
Yeah.
to
they
run
take
the
over.
company for
They're
their
running the
dad, yeah.
company. Not Shane.
No,
Stephanie.
No.
Shane's out of the scene at this point.
He is, yeah. But, so then the merger with WWE and the UFC, Oh, they did merge. I've got
They were both
confused.
WWE. They were taken over. WWE was bought out by their parent company. Took it over.
Oh, okay.
Endeavor
Yeah.
owns the UFC and WWF now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you thinking of WCW WWF merger?
What was the
No?
one where Shane McMahon was like, we should do this? And the dad
That
was
was
like,
That was
UFC.
UFC. Yeah.
but they did it.
Yeah, no. UFC, they're owned. WWF and UFC are owned by the same company. There's a company over top of both of them now
Oh, well, then what was Shane McMahon telling him to do?
to buy the UFC outright.
That was like in the
Oh,
early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he knew that the UFC was kind of on his last legs when it first started, and Shane McMahon thought, "Hey, we can buy this for cheap, and we know fight, we got the ring, we got the cameras, we can just do it."
If I remember correctly, didn't Vince say to him something like, or not to him, but being interviewed, he said that he didn't want to do that because it was a totally different, obviously, thing because he couldn't control the outcome of UFC.
That exactly. I don't know.
And they weren't characters.
Because
someone's going to win and lose, and we can't control that. We can't.
Yeah.
Right
and because it's in boxing and UFC, like there's a ranking system for people to fight.
It's not.
He's used to just like, I'm going to take the two best guys that are going to make the most money and throw them in a match together.
Yeah.
Where you can't do that in like professional sports.
No, exactly. Like wrestling is almost like it's like a soap opera, really.
Yeah.
Whereas UFC, it's like no, this is like a legit combat sport where you can't just decide that this guy's going to fight that guy and this person. It's like no, and then. You don't know what kind of personalities you're going to have or whatever, but, so it's like there's too much that you can't control that he didn't like it.
Shane McMahon definitely was like, no, I think this is a great idea. But Daddy didn't like it.
Who knows? I mean, it was dirt cheap, but I mean, I don't know. Dana White knows what he's doing, though, too, so it's...
So flash forward 20 years or so, and what happens? WWE and UFC are on the same parent company now, right?
I wonder if Shane's just kind of like...
Yeah.
Maybe, but that's also Shane assuming. Like, again,
I'm
not
not going to
that's what I'm saying. Shane McMahon is like, that's Dana White and the two brothers there, the Furtado brothers. Like,
obviously, I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying. I am not gonna lie though, like the little bits that I saw of Shane McMahon during the whole like when he was a wrestler and stuff, I effing hated him. He was so annoying.
The Greenwich Street posse.
Yeah, he was so stupid. But watching this and hearing him talk about it and stuff, I'm like, out of like the three, there's nothing wrong with Stephanie, but she's her dad. Stephanie's her dad.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think there's some people said she's tougher than the problem. Shane was super nice. Like, she's tougher than Shane.
But I have this little like soft spot for Shane because he wanted to be part of the family, and like he just wasn't really cut for it. Like it was just where Stephanie was under good tutelage with Vince, and she probably just has Vince's personality, where she's more just like give me the money.
She wasn't afraid to go in there and crack skulls. Where it
Here
sounds
comes
like
the
Shane
money.
was a bit of a nicer guy.
So and then in 2022, he resigned, but he's back.
Yeah, because I remember
that
when it happened, that he left because of all the allegations and whatever. Then he came back again.
He like literally disappeared.
He came back when the whole buyout was going on and stuff like that. After that was done, he came back in again to run the company under Endeavor.
But then Stephanie officially resigned. She's like, I resigned. I'm not part of the company anymore. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of leave it. I mean, none of these allegations have been proven, but he has a lot of allegations.
He got kicked out again, right? Because more allegations came up.
Yeah. I'm getting confused with the 2022. No, because there was ones in like 2023 or 2024, like recent allegations.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So he's out again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came back and then it was like, oh, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Did you really think that you would be? I mean, let's be real. Whatever. But did you really think you'd be able to run from the horrible behavior you had? Probably.
I mean, we're seeing it all the time now, like in multiple entertainment businesses.
Yeah.
Speaking of like, what's going on right now with some famous former rapper, hip hop stars and stuff like that.
Yep.
Everyone's getting their day of reckoning now.
Yeah.
Good.
These guys got, back in the 80s, 90s, before cell phones and all this stuff, where stuff could be a lot more hidden.
Yeah.
All that shit's starting to finally see the light of day, and it's coming out, and some of these people, their day of reckoning's coming.
And not only that, but a lot of, because some of the sexual misconduct stuff was with not wrestlers, but people that worked within the organization. And back then in the 80s and 90s, you weren't going to say shit because you needed your job and you get fired.
Well, that's exactly it, yeah.
And now, coming out and like, women are becoming more empowered and they're having the support that they need to be able to report this horrible behavior. And like, it's just one of, some these guys have been jackasses for so long that it's about time they're finally gonna get their due. Look, you're not just a jackass once when it comes to that.
Well, it's what do they always say? When there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You know what? Like let this play out in the courts and whatever. But it's nice to see that these people, these people are finally getting, putting up with all the shit for so long, get their due. It's kind of good to see.
It's good to see. And the sad part is that they're never gonna, be fully, for everything they've done because it's just impossible.
No.
Yeah. No. But it's good to see that they're at least paying some prices, some form of punishment for the shit they've pulled in the past.
Yeah. It's just I'd love to hear some of those podcasts from the wrestlers because I would love to hear which ones are like really honest and just talk about things.
Yeah. That was the one thing, at least I will say with this documentary, like it didn't try and sugarcoat, like it talked about everything. It was obviously it's a little biased in terms of, I think, leaning towards what they thought about Vince,
But I'm
but
not
it
gonna-
wasn't too bad, though. It wasn't too...
But wait, I'm not gonna lie though. I honestly think the overall general feeling, minus Kiz has Hulk Hogan, but I'm not gonna say that the general overall feeling from the wrestlers was like, "We love Vince, yay!"
No,
go
that's what I'm
Vince."
saying. Like, there wasn't a whole like puff piece on
No.
Vince. It wasn't,
Yeah.
I mean, the real telling thing was they asked every single wrestler,
Yeah,
"What
like
is
you
Vince
said.
McMahon's legacy?" And none of them can
They were like,
answer it.
The only guy that said something nice was Tony Atlas.
And he was just kind of like,
He's like
you know what?
greatest wrestling promoter of all time. He said.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you kind of have to give him that. I mean, he has been.
Well, I mean, you can't take away the business he's built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how he did it, that's that's where there's lots of skeletons in those closets that are starting to come out now.
I think, like we said earlier, that the whole Mr. McMahon character, I just think that was actually really him being able to do and say what he wanted to. All
Oh
the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
most of them said that like Vince McMahon was Mr. McMahon. There was no difference between
No.
the two. I know,
Yeah.
like I said, Vince was like, no, that was a total exaggeration.
character,
But every
yeah.
other person said, nope, there was no difference between. Even
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was
Yeah.
laughing. He was like, that Vince was Vince.
Yeah.
In the ring, out of the ring, that was the same guy.
Yeah.
So.
It
But
was-
I mean, like Vince has a. You look at yourself, you think this is how I am, but
Yeah.
everyone else around you will tell you what you're really like.
I mean, like I said, for not being a super huge wrestling fan, I mean, I love documentaries about sports and stuff, so I thought it was really good. Like you guys said, it was a really well done documentary.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
biased. It was, and they had a lot of people being interviewed, so there was a lot of opinions, and the fact that both his kids did it too. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real. When they first started it, obviously it was.
It
not
was all
planning to be
before
on
this,
it,
all
yeah.
this stuff came out in the news and the charges and harassment and whatever. Yeah, so it was all pre that. But
Who was the one guy that was like basically saying that this was all like, negative against Vince?
Bruce Pritchard. He said it was a gotcha piece.
yeah,
Yeah.
the one guy
Who
that's
is he again?
He's still
He-
he works for
He works for
WWE.
WWE, but he played the Brother Love character back in like
Yeah.
the late '80s.
But
early
he
90s.
yes, but he works for.
So he's another ass kisser.
Well, he's still
Yeah,
employed by the
he's still
company,
employed.
so it's like
Yeah.
Ugh.
it taints his thoughts definitely.
Yeah,
Whatever.
exactly. It's really weird because Vince McMahon is such a complicated person. Like,
Yeah.
he grew up in poverty. They touched on this too, like allegations that his mom may have like sexually abused him as a kid.
He
and
Yeah.
stuff.
full out said it was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, exactly. So like he's got like lots of demons inside that
Yeah.
man's head.
Oh yeah, like
And I'm not excusing his behavior at all.
No.
but
No.
he's a complicated individual, and I think we kind of
Yeah.
saw that in the documentary as well.
Oh, even his dad, I think was rough and tough and hands on, like
Yeah.
abusive and whatever.
abusive, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's it's definitely he's a complicated character
Yeah,
Not character, person.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, yeah, and like Eric said, it doesn't excuse any behavior, but
No,
I mean,
not at all.
Looking at the
Yeah.
complexities of him himself dealing with abuse, it's just, it's sad. It's sad for everybody. It's
Hurt
just
people
sad.
hurt people.
Yeah, I mean, but hopefully he does some good with his billions of dollars.
I hope so.
Hopefully, yeah.
Jeez.
But no, definitely give it a watch. Like I said, if you like documentaries, you like sports, if you're a wrestling fan, it's definitely worth watching. It's really interesting. I mean, and you see all these wrestlers now. It's kind of funny to see some of these guys now.
Yeah,
Some of
them
age,
still
okay.
look okay. I will say this about Hulk Hogan, even though I don't like him, but damn, I mean, he's in his 70s and he looks like even if he's had Botox, like you can't tell. He looks
Yeah.
the same as he
It's all
did
that
30
tanning
years
he's
ago.
got. It's
But you think that would make you look worse?
you think so? No, a lot of, even Stone Cold Steve Austin, he could
Yeah.
just look a whole lot different than
it's
he did.
those
in the
sunny
ring.
days in Florida.
That
that's
one
right.
guy looked really old. No
Who?
offense to him.
Stone Cold?
No, the
Heartbreak Kid,
yeah,
Shawn
I was
Michaels?
Like,
Oh,
damn,
Shawn
that's
Michaels.
him?
Yeah, so
Little rough.
maybe some of that's karma because he was a big d-bag back in the day. So
Okay, well, whatever. And again, we're just having fun, talking about people's appearances, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but check it out. Definitely give it a watch and
Yeah.
let us know what you think about it.
Well, comment below. Let us know who your favorite wrestler was or
Ooh,
is.
Yeah.
wow,
It's hard. Really quickly, can you pick one off the top of your head, Eric? Go.
Mankind.
Ooh, no, shut up. You're wrong.
I love Mankind.
That was your favorite?
Yeah, I thought he was hilarious.
Oh.
With the three faces of Foley, good classic
Okay,
wrestling stuff.
Steve, what about you?
Like all time?
You just have to pick one.
Oh, my all-time favorite is still Macho Man. Jake the
Really?
Snake Roberts, another one too. Yeah.
Oh, I like the Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold, yeah, he was
Yeah,
great.
Stone Cold's
you
good.
can't
Because he was
deny.
just so
Yeah.
campy and like he was like, "Ugh," but like you just had to laugh.
Well,
He
it's just
so
funny. The stuff he said was
stupid.
hilarious. Yeah.
Like a country bumpkin, kind of
Yeah.
like.
Kind of, yeah,
thing.
just a good old boy.
All right, guys, comment below your favorite wrestler. But that's it for today's podcast.
That's
we thank
right.
you so very much for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.
See you later,
everyone.
Bye,
everybody.
guys.